we'll have an invocation by Councilman Tonsmeyer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilperson Hodge.
Let us pray. Stir up, O Lord, your spirit within us, that we may with fairness and charity discuss the businesses of this community. We give you thanks for the freedom that allows us to assemble. And this we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Keeling, please call the roll.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1.
Here.
Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Louis Tonsmeyer, Ward 3. Here. Lindsay McDaniel, Ward 4.
Here.
Diane Tate, Ward 5.
Here.
Lori Pruitt, Ward 6.
Here.
Thank you, Connie. The first order of business is the approval of the council meeting minutes from our February 2nd meeting. Council's had these well in advance of tonight. Chair will entertain any additions, corrections, edits, comments, or motions.
Mayor, didn't see any additions or corrections. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved unanimously. We've got a first reading of an ordinance, actually a couple of them. No vote will be taken tonight, but I'll ask Mr. Myers to come forward and kick us off tonight.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Our wholesale electric costs have continued to increase as a result of environmental costs at our coal plants, increases in nuclear fuel, and reduced off-system sales. This has required that we adjust our retail rates. In 2011, we had a cost of service study completed to reapportion cost across the rate classes. This study was performed by an independent outside firm using methodology consistent with electric municipalities across the state of Georgia, and that was presented to council in December. There are no increases to the city of Cartersville included in these rates. In your package, you have a copy of the rates proposed to go into effect with billing in March.
Any questions for Mr. Myers on this item? All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I do know that we have some folks here that wish to address council. I'm going to open up a public hearing for those who wish to address council. To do so, I'll ask you kindly to, when you do step forward, if you'll give your name and your address and the company that you may be affiliated with for our clerk for the official minutes. So at this point, I'll open up a public hearing relative to the first reading of this ordinance. Anybody wishing to step forward may do so at this time.
Mayor and council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Whittenberg and I reside in the city at 4 Alpine Drive. I'm also a principal in a manufacturing business that is located inside of the city limits, and we buy all of our utilities from the city of Cartersville. Our sales are largely in the United States with a small amount of export. We employ about 100 people. Our sales revenue recently has been between 8 and 9 million, and that's down from 17 million. As I stated, we buy all of our utilities from Cartersville, gas, water, sewer, electricity, and last year, our fiscal year, which ends in September, we spent $939,618 was paid to the city of Cartersville for utilities. We are considered an LP rate for electricity, and our business has been in business and in Cartersville, basically in the same location. Although the address has changed, it's never moved physically. We've just, for one reason or another, changed addresses. I'm here in opposition of the rate increase. Now, I can't speak to David's study or some of the other people who are going to speak tonight about the electric rates. I'm merely speaking about an increase of any kind. Our business, like so many others in the area, is volume driven. And the economic conditions in this city, state, county, United States are such now that we are suffering and we are basically in a survival mode. So we don't need any downward pressure on our margins, which are paper thin already. I would ask you to postpone this rate increase to a better time after we have enticed other businesses and brought more jobs to the city of Cartersville. In my opinion, as a citizen, we need to assert ourselves as the place to be for business and the most business-friendly environment that we can possibly have. All of us, including the city, have sort of girded our loins and made the best we can of some rough times, but I am asking that we postpone these rates. Now, there will be some later, not argument, but statements made about whether the rates are small or large. I don't care whether they're small or large. I don't want to see any rates right now. And I think from the citizen standpoint, not the business owner standpoint, but we need to put forth our best efforts to lower taxes, lower utility rates. The Freeport is a great thing. I'll be here to speak in favor of the Freeport probably. But I would ask you to listen to the other gentlemen that are here that can speak more easily and with a lot more grace than I can about electric rates. Again, timing is everything. If we can possibly put off this rate increase, I wish you would consider it. And I would appreciate it greatly if you would listen to the other members and keep an open mind, or other people that are here to speak against it. There are both corporations here and experts, and Clay Jones is here from the GTMA, of which we are a member at Southern Yarn. So if you'll just keep an open mind and listen and have some further conversations about this, I would appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate having the venue to voice opposition, or not just opposition, but pro or con on any issue. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name is Charles Chapman, and I work for Shaw Industries. Have been with Shaw since I came to Dalton about 15 years ago. My address is 1801 St. Ives Place in Dalton. My responsibilities, I'm group manager for our energy and reliability programs. And I actually am, my group is responsible for procurement of all of our energy. So obviously we consume a fair amount of electricity from your system, as well as gas, as well as water. Really what I'm here is to give y'all just a little bit of information on some evaluations that we've done relative to rates. And we felt like it was important for y'all to be aware of sort of how y'all stack up rate-wise compared to our rates nationwide, as well as to share some information with you from a Southeast and North Georgia perspective. As we looked at your rates, the one thing that we'll say from a national perspective is, you know, y'all are probably our fourth or fifth highest electric provider nationally, competing with the likes of Southern Cal Edison and Arizona Power in that range from a rate perspective. As you look at North Georgia, you look at the Southeast, your rates are consistently in the top 2 or 3. If you look in North Georgia, you're in the top 2 from a rate perspective. As far as you are considerably higher than what we pay average. If you consider our average rate corporately, and you look at that rate compared to what y'all are charging, it's in the range of anywhere from, within North Georgia, 10 to 15% higher than we pay to other utility providers in North Georgia. If you look in the southeast, it's 20 to 30% higher, and that's without this proposed rate increase. You know, we obviously are still in a downturn. Our business is still considerably down from where it was at its peak point. And we would ask that you at least give some consideration to further reviewing more details and more facts regarding the increase, to give some consideration to whether the proposed increase amount is really fair and equitable to us. You know, certainly energy is a big piece of our cost, and we want to do as much as we can to improve that cost. We obviously are after and pursuing things to reduce our consumption and to improve efficiency. But we also obviously look at what it costs us to do business. And, you know, costs are certainly a very big focus for our company today, will continue to be a focus for us. And this kind of increase we just deem is not fair, and it gets you even further out of line relative to people that we buy electric from across the state and across the southeast. So my point here today is to really just present you with sort of how y'all compare to our other providers, and to ask that you please give some consideration to looking into this further and evaluating the facts fully, and we'll be glad to participate in other conversations with you about that and provide you whatever information you would like to help back up those facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Pollock, and I'm a consultant with J. Pollock Incorporated in St. Louis. We're handing out some charts and things for you to look at during my presentation, including my biography, which will tell you I've been around a few years. I've actually represented customers, manufacturers throughout the state of Georgia since about the mid-1970s, and I do similar work with other industrial customers in many states across the southeast and across the nation. We were retained by Anheuser-Busch, Lindy, and Shaw to look over the ECG cost of service study that Mr. Myers talked about earlier tonight. We reviewed that study. We reviewed how the costs were allocated in the studies, the allocation of the increase, and the rate design. We've had several discussions with the department and presented our findings, many of which are very technical, and we'll review them here tonight, but certainly be willing to talk about them at another time if you wish. What I want to focus my remarks on tonight is really the amount of the increase that is really being sought here. And yes, rates are going up for everybody, but not everybody the same. And I want to also talk about the fact that some of the rates are going up disproportionately for some of the classes, some of the rates. I also want to talk about the level of margins that are being baked into the rates, and to talk a little bit about the structure of the power cost adjustment. If you look at chart 1, which is the green and red chart, this basically shows the amount of the increase and measured in several different ways. When the cost study was done, there was an Exhibit 1 attached to that cost study, and if you look at all the numbers, and I'm not asking you to do that now, it shows an overall increase of about $617,000. If you go through the ordinance that was just read and apply the same information to the numbers in Exhibit 1, what you're going to find is that revenues are going down by $456,000. Now, we all know that's not really happening. The rates are going up, and how much they're going up really depends upon the starting point. Where do you start when you measure a rate increase? And so when you look at what happens in the actual test year, the city uses a test year, a 12-month period ending June 30 of 2011, to measure revenues, costs, and adequacy. And it's that test year number that's really the important thing. Rates are really going up by $4.3 million. The big point and the big takeaway is the starting point really depends upon what do you assume about the power cost adjustment. At what level is the power cost adjustment as the starting point? And to illustrate that, look at chart 2, which shows a history of the power cost adjustment. And it shows that power cost adjustment is in black. It shows that for the test year, started out below 9 mils and went all the way up at the end of the test year to 20 mils. The rate increase that's shown in Exhibit 1, the numbers that I showed on the previous chart, assumes the starting point of the power cost adjustment is the 20 mil number. But in rates, and like I said, I've been doing this for a few years, it's customary to use a 12-month period, a test year is what we call it, to measure the adequacy of the rates. And so if we look at the 12 months ending June 30 of 2011, we find that the average power cost adjustment in that period was about 12 mils. And so that 12 mils is the starting point. When you start with that point and measure the rates that are developed in the ordinance, that's when you get a $4.3 million overall increase. If you turn to chart 3, that shows the breakdown of the $4.3 million. Most of it is power costs. As David Meyer said, that's the primary driver. That's what's driving the increase, but that's not the only driver. There's some increases in other costs that are being reflected here too. And so you can see the breakdown of that. If you look at chart 4, that shows a further breakdown of the two components, but broken down by rate. And this is the really important focal point of the message here tonight, is we're not suggesting that any rate increase is wrong. We're suggesting that what's really happening is when you look at the 4.3 million and you look at the increases being proposed in the various rates, that impact is very disproportionate. You can see that in the large power rate, the extra large power rate, and even the lighting rate, street lighting rate is going way, way up. We've recommended to the department, to David and Sam, that we think that the power costs, we understand why power costs are going up. We want those costs to be allocated properly in a way that recognizes accepted theories of allocation. We've also said that really, to be fair to all the classes, that the red part of the bar there that's shown on chart 4 ought to be spread more evenly. As you can see, there's red bars going down and red bars going up, meaning that that's a disproportionate spread of the increase among the different rates. And we feel like a good solution to that, and we've offered a recommendation to the city that just basically says, let's just take the red part of the increase, spread it evenly across all classes, and we're ready and willing to talk about that at any future time. To emphasize again on the red part of the increase, we look at chart number 5. That shows the different margins that are being baked into the cost of service study. When we looked at the ECG study, it showed the margins required should be 5.88% of revenues, but the actual rates that were originally proposed, would produce margins of almost a little over 9%. We talked to and brought to our concerns to the department. They came back and lowered the margins by about 1.2 million, still yielding a total margin of about 7.43%. And our question about that is, well, if the study says you require 5.88%, why are we setting rates to produce 7.43? Finally, let me just leave you with one takeaway on the power cost adjustment. The power cost adjustment, the way that works is the city often adjusts the power cost adjustment to track changes in wholesale power costs. And when it does so on an equal cents per kilowatt hour basis. What chart 6 shows, if we take the ECG cost study, we take our preferred cost allocation study, no matter how you bake the numbers, the power costs aren't the same across all rate schedules on a kilowatt hour basis. And that's an important takeaway, because that's when you assign power costs on an equal cents per kilowatt hour basis, essentially the black horizontal line on chart 6, you can see that it charges some classes too little because their costs are higher than average. It charges some classes too much because their actual costs are lower than average. What we ask the city to do, and we ask the electric department to do, is to look toward going forward, look for a solution such that we can make a power cost adjustment that more accurately tracks the cost of service. We're here ready to talk about any of the issues that we brought up or any of our observations on the rate impacts. I thank you for your time and attention, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now or later.
Mr. Pollock,
Yes.
do you want this included as part of the record?
That would be fine with me.
Okay. Connie, if you would make a note of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Clay Jones. I'm the Vice President and General Counsel for the Georgia Association of Manufacturers. Our office address is 50 Hurt Plaza, that's H-U-R-T, Suite 985, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303. Our association has been in existence for 112 years. We've represented manufacturers all of that time. I feel like I've been there about 90 of those years, but We used to be called the Georgia Textile Manufacturers Association. Mr. Wittenberg mentioned GTMA, and that's what we went by for a long time. Our membership now is expanded to include not just textile and carpet companies, but also other manufacturers of anybody that makes something in Georgia and creates wealth and brings it here. They can be a member of our association, so we've changed our name to better reflect that. So we're the Georgia Association of Manufacturers. And what we essentially do is represent our members. We have about 70 manufacturers from all across the state. Southern Yarn Dyers is one of them. Shaw Industries is one of them. You also have Chemical Products Corporation. That's another one here that's in your city as a member of ours. We have others that are in your area, like Gerdau, and that aren't served by your utilities, but they're in this area. And what we do is we represent them at the General Assembly, before the Georgia Public Service Commission, before the Department of Revenue, the Environmental Protection Division, anywhere that the costs of their businesses are affected. And so I got involved with this because of the issues going on here. I know there's been a lot of discussions. I know that from our side there's an appreciation of the efforts that have been made to talk about these issues. But I think we've reached a point where there's a great concern from your manufacturing members here in this city about what the future is going to hold in terms of their electric rates, their ability to compete. So I want to now say something I should have said when I started, which is thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be here and to let me speak. I can tell you that I appreciate the pressures that local governments are under. I hear about them all the time. I work down at the Capitol some, and I work in other agencies, and I know that you're under a lot of pressure to make things work, and the downturn has been stressful on local governments. But it's also been stressful on manufacturers. And the reason I wanted to be here tonight was to provide you with just a little perspective of what we see from a broader context, not just what's going on here, but what's going on with manufacturers generally. We're fortunate to work with many of the finest companies in our state, and we're proud to do that because manufacturing creates jobs and creates wealth for our Georgia communities. We pay wages and benefits above average. Our members are excellent corporate citizens. We worked as an association to make Georgia an attractive state in which manufacturers want to invest capital, retain and add jobs, create wealth by making something concrete, selling it somewhere else and bringing that money back here to you, to our communities. Too often, though, we have seen lately those investments shifting to other places. As a nation, we've seen it shift to other countries, as you're well aware. Georgia used to have, about 12 years ago, about 620,000 manufacturing jobs. We've got about 345,000 now. You think about that for just a minute. That is significant. And it's my understanding, I don't know the details, but from speaking with some of my colleagues, there's been some manufacturers that have shut down here in the city of Cartersville. It's a harshly competitive environment. Manufacturers do not have the luxury of simply passing along costs to their customers like some businesses might. Because if they do, their product becomes uncompetitive and they can't sell it, and they lose. Either that investment moves to another state or moves to another country. Decisions on where to invest, where to locate production, where to keep production are driven by the costs of producing the product. And increasingly, and the key point for tonight is, the cost of energy used in manufacturing has become a very significant cost of those costs of production. A few decades ago it wasn't always that way, but now energy costs are a major cost driver. They are a major factor in decisions on where investment can survive and can flourish. So as a result, our members are very concerned about their energy bills. Just as production can shift from state to state and country to country, it can shift within the state. You've seen that here. Other local communities have seen that where their manufacturers have not been able to continue. You've heard Shaw Industries talk tonight about where the city's electric rates compare. And I think, I would hope that maybe that would make an impression that you could say, well, maybe we need to look at what we're doing just to be careful that we're not seen as being as not being competitive in terms of the electricity that we provide here. I'm very confident because I know that this council, I don't know any of you personally, but I do know that, and I expect fully that this council wants to be pro-business and pro-growth. And I had the pleasure of walking around your downtown here tonight. I hadn't been here in probably 5 years, and it's beautiful. You have a beautiful place here. And I know that you want economic prosperity here for your citizens. And I'm not here to tell you how to run your city. You guys know how to do that. You're in the best position to make these kind of decisions, and I know you'll make the right ones, but I can just offer you the perspective that manufacturers pay close attention to these decisions, and they, particularly on energy, you would be, if you ever got to see some of these analyses, they look at the cost of energy. They can get it down to hundreds of cents for what it takes to make an ounce of product, no matter what industry they're in. The sophisticated manufacturers have to do that because they're having to squeeze costs out of every little bit that they can. I think the comments of John Wittenberg earlier, who's been a proud member of our association for a long time, illustrate that point. And I want to kind of close with the idea of something I've heard discussed a lot lately, both at the national level, both among politicians of both parties, among advocates for manufacturing, and even among a lot of the polling data we see among the general public, and that is there is a increasing recognition of the importance of manufacturing in this country. And we truly believe, and it is our mission to help this happen, that we could be on the verge of a manufacturing renaissance where we actually see manufacturing come back to this country, come back to our communities, increase production, and help create wealth for our local communities. And in Georgia, manufacturing helps local communities. I live in the, I didn't always live in Atlanta. I lived in Hazelhurst. I was born in Hazelhurst, Georgia, in South Georgia. I grew up, I lived in Douglas. I've grown up in Athens. Went to school in Athens. I've lived in Atlanta. So I've lived in all different types of places. But, Atlanta isn't where the manufacturing is. That's where my office is. But our members are out here. They're out here helping communities just like yours. So the question becomes, if we do have that renaissance, or if that's too fancy word, maybe an upturn, who's going to benefit from that? Which states are going to benefit from that? Which communities are going to benefit from that? And we believe it's the ones that are going to adopt pro-growth policies, that are going to adopt policies that welcome manufacturers. And I just respectfully ask that you look at the analysis that Mr. Pollock's made. I know it's a head scratcher. I mean, I've been doing these cases. I do cases down to the Public Service Commission whenever Georgia Power wants to raise their rates. And it's still hard to follow a lot of this stuff. I listen to Jeff, and he's been doing it for a long time. So it's not an easy issue to look at, but we just ask that you, in making your decision and looking at this, proceed with caution. Be careful not to adopt rates or rate increases that place an excessive or unfair portion of what you need to recover on the manufacturing class. Sometimes it's easy to do that, but the result ends up being a negative one because it makes the manufacturers here less competitive with ones in other places. And I think we wouldn't want to see that. But again, I really do thank you for the opportunity to come down and visit your lovely city and be here, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or just finish my time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, any further discussion to be had by council this time? Once again, this is the first reading of this ordinance amendment.
I just got one quick question from the gentleman from Shaw, and I apologize for not remembering your name. You said that we were in the top 1 or 2 in North Georgia. Who's number 1?
Who's highest?
Mm-hmm.
I need you to, I'm sorry, just for the record, I need you to speak it into the microphone, please, sir.
Highest is Tennessee Valley Authority, which is, as you probably well know, is government regulated. Very large coal user, but they are our highest.
Okay.
In regards to some of these studies, we have asked for some comparatives in general from some of the manufacturing companies, and we have yet to get that information. Is that something you would be willing to provide so we could have it in hand?
That is something that I think we can provide y'all.
That'd be good.
Certainly I'll say that there is some competitive nature to those, but I think we can arrange that.
I think that would help.
Okay.
While you're there, since we are concerned, the group is so concerned about our rates being so high, I'm just wondering, where in the heck have you been without tearing the doors down up until now? You know? Why haven't you said something about these rates other than this is the last rate? I don't quite understand that. In other words, if I'm so out of line, I'm not going to wait until I get another increase. I'm going to beat on somebody's door trying to get it down from the previous price. That's,
Yeah, let me say this, that first, that bear with me from a standpoint of that I'm fairly new to the energy role within Shaw. But I will tell you that as I was looking at rate changes for the number of locations that I did the analysis on, saw something very interesting with y'all's rates. Your rates from 9 to 10 actually decreased. Okay, your rates from 10 to 11 increased by almost 14%. So, you know, you really saw in total probably about a 6-7% increase in that 9 to 11 time period. And so, you know, what I would tell you, the reason that I'm here tonight, and I think the reason that many of these people are here tonight, is that while we understand that rates need to be adjusted, and we deal with rate increases routinely, we just think that this rate increase is out of line relative to what we've seen with some of our other service providers. And you know, my concern is the fact that the increase is such that it is going to put you on a competitive level with Arizona Power. And you're still not close to you're not that close to SoCal Edison, but you're getting close. I mean, and we're talking California. You know, California ought to have higher energy costs than Cartersville, Georgia. Arizona ought to have higher energy costs than the state of Georgia, and certainly the city of Cartersville. So the question from my standpoint is, why is that rate difference such? I think that's why we wanted to let y'all know that just come from a comparative basis where you are relative to other people that we're having supply us electricity. Because I think it's important for y'all to have that information, because it gives you a more educated perspective. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm asking, just to give some consideration to it.
I think we'll look forward to getting that comparative data.
Sir, if you would step forward.
Okay.
1 second. There's my card. I know your attorneys will probably want some sort of confidentiality and trade secret agreement to go with that when you release that. So, you know, you can just have them contact me and we'll work out those details.
And will they be communicated directly to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone
Now,
else?
if I wanted to ask for the same information from Lindy, is that something I would ask Mr. Pollock to provide, or would I ask Mr. Casterkane?
You'd have to ask them.
Which you've already done.
Good evening. Steve Casterkane from Lindy. I'm from New Jersey, 575 Mountain Avenue, representing our plant down here. I went over a lot about our plant last time we got together, and I just want to first say thank you all for the time that you gave us last time, and thanks again for tonight, and certainly David Myers and Sam Grove for all the efforts that they gave us to work with us on the exchange of information, and certainly this cost of service study, and giving up that information, having their consultant do that. So we appreciate that. Great. We realize it's a lot of work. We understand that this postpone things on your side. So we appreciate, we realize that. You know, we did get a request for bills for several of the states that we operate, and due to resources, we need to put our focus on this right now. One of the things that we do have on our schedule to do back home is to get some people to pull that data together for you. Because I know a lot of these rates that they put publicly, they're not really representative of the rates that industrials pay. There's a lot of rates that are more in line with how we operate business. So we'll put that together so you have a good judgment. Certain things, though, they're special contracts between us and other utilities. I'll just have to find out about those in many cases on maybe confidentiality agreements between the city and us. So there's some work behind that.
I just feel like if the city is going to act in good faith with you and give you a wealth of information that we've been more than happy to provide in order for council to have an education in how your other business functions, we've got to have that information in front of us. It kind of sets us in a position not to have everything we need.
You're right, and, you know, I think in this case it was, we realized the cost that you were facing in trying to allocate that. As a comparative basis, it's not where we wanted to put our focus on, because if you needed to recoup a certain amount of revenue, knowing what Tennessee did or South Carolina did doesn't really help on the matter here and cover what you guys need. But as a learning process, and it can go along with items that we found in this cost of service study, that can certainly be part of an educational, and we've done that with other, you know, commissioners and cities, and you can certainly do that as a joint effort with Mr. Pollack and our data and Shaw. You know, you had a question, if you don't mind me, if I can answer your question, sir, about, you know, really banging down that door when rates are going up. And that was a great, I'm sorry?
I would.
I know, and you know, my job is to do that, and that's why I'm down here, and you heard a lot from me, so, but, you know, that was one of the areas we've been trying to work on. And certainly we didn't request this cost of service study out of for no reason. I believe it's policies, talking with David Myers, consultant, and David Myers, that when the PCA approaches a certain level, in this case 10 mils, just for a reference gauge, that's when they would perform a cost of service study. From what I could tell, it reached that point back in 2009. And since at least a year, 2 years, or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we were being imposed with the PCA and saw that increasing, we tried to help facilitate getting this cost of service study, because it has exceeded that threshold and maintained or remained above it for quite some time. So we were banging on that door, and that was one of the issues when we got together with the mayor and Sam Grove. It was probably back in, was it 2010 or so?
Summer, yeah.
It was to help do that, so we can maybe get some collaboration, some discussions going to really understand better and to work with on addressing those rates. So, you know, we did take steps to do that. And I think at this point, it just got to a point where it got to a lot of other industrials aware, because when that level of increase comes into play and affects our companies and how we're going to operate, I think that's when you really get you know, a lot of awareness. So thank you again, and you know, I guess our request is that, I know you postponed it before, and we did have some proposals, and I don't think we're trying to revamp the rate structure. What the consultant did was excellent work, and you know, this is kind of like this art and science thing where we can bring in 100 consultants and everybody can have a different idea on the right way to do it. So certainly we have 2 experts, and I think both their ways can be considered correct. We're trying to work within ECG's structure to maybe identify some ways that we can better work that allocation without changing anything, I guess, significantly from our viewpoint, you know, without establishing new rates, a new restructure, new modeling, because this thing's being used for the other cities of ECG and MEAG. So we're not looking to do a major change, just really work within the confines of what we have and just trying to make it better for everybody. So, you know, we would ask that if maybe you can consider some of the proposals, and, you know, maybe not ask for 100% of something, but maybe there's a compromise somewhere in between we can reach. So I don't know the best way to go about that, but, you know, maybe you can let us know before the second reading if we can get together somehow and do that educational part or go through some of these numbers. Might be, you know, we would be happy to come back down and do that. So,
one point I'd like to make, and I know you're all not just a complete team. You know, everybody's coming from a different angle here, and everybody has a different opinion. But the whole time you've been speaking, Shaw is up here saying that it matters about comparisons and, you know, what's going on in Dalton or in North Georgia or compared to California or Arizona. I'm no electrical specialist. Kerry's asking for competitive info. He's saying it's important. You're sort of saying it's not important, that it, you know, it doesn't matter what you're paying somewhere else. It's what you're paying here. To me, that's very contradicting as to what we're trying to tackle here. To me, it matters what our competition's doing. Sure. And maybe mine's perception as opposed to reality, but you know, I'm an insurance consultant. I represent a good many local firms and southeastern firms, and I ask all the time about our utilities. Our utilities seem to be in line. Obviously, I'm going to be shocked when we get the additional data, but I think we're going to be voting here in a couple of weeks. And for me, when I vote, I would like to see where your other numbers are for your other plans.
Sure. That's a great question. And it's not contradictory. It's actually from two perspectives. And what's the goal for each one? What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to be consider and understanding from your cost perspective. So regardless of what everybody else is, that's why our cost of service study, what Jeff looked at, didn't look at whether that cost was justified or not. We assume that that's what it is. You know, that's what MEAG's cost is. That's what you're getting faced with. It's the allocation of it. So when I say it doesn't matter, we're trying to work with you and understand the cost pressures that you have, but how to work with that. Having a comparison of where you are would be the next step, as I mentioned. The first step would be, let's assume step one, that your costs, this is what they are. Second step, let's find out the best allocation for them. The third step would be, let's try to better understand electricity, where you are for going forward. And I think where the rates are, Jeff alluded to it at the end of his presentation, but the PCA mechanism and the structure going forward, when that comes back into play, that needs some work too, because as that goes on, it's going to unfairly collect from industrials certain costs, fixed costs. So that's where, when you understand global or nationally where you lay, that would be the next step on how to really work on that, where you fit in the competition going forward. Right now, let's focus on what we need to do right now with this immediate need, because I know there's a timeline involved. Certainly, the last time we left, we were shooting for February, March, to get this effective date, March. So that's what we're working on. But I think absolutely the next step would be, let's look at the nation, look where you are regionally or across the nation as far as you want to expand it, and how we can improve the PCA component of your rates going forward. Thank you again, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Evening. My name's Craig Clark. I work with ATR here in Cartersville. I live at 3 Carrington Drive here in the city. I moved here in '89 I was attracted by the quality of life that this city had and the jobs, the manufacturing. I've been in manufacturing all my life. That drew us here as our family. Well, times are changed. The economies are different than they were back then. We're all doing more with less. And for our company to be able to support businesses in the city to retain counsel and buy insurance and eat at restaurants here in the city, I'm asking that you guys look at the margin and look at the timetable and help the businesses that are trying to do more with less. Give us and give this economy more time to get stronger before we implement a higher cost that's just going to affect everybody in this community, everybody in this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say one more thing.
Please.
I wanted to disrespect
respond to Councilman Stepp's question, because I thought it was a really good one, and I think Steve answered it really well for his company. But I just wanted to, you know, when you talk about setting rates, you've got a certain amount of costs that you have to recover. Once you decide what those costs are, you have to decide what classes you're going to allocate them to. And I guess the point I was making earlier, and I think Charles was making earlier, is the reason it matters to look comparatively is that that's what manufacturers do. It's not that you know, in an ideal world, you want everybody's rates to be as low as possible. But when you're, you know, comparing your rates for, say, a residential customer or even for a commercial customer, think about a grocery store. Generally, a grocery store isn't going to reinvest somewhere else because of their power rates, unless they're truly exorbitant. But manufacturers have to look at that as a cost. So I think that's maybe the disconnect. That's why the positions, I think, are consistent, because on the one hand, Charles is coming from a manufacturing background saying, you know, I'm looking at these power costs and I'm comparing them, and yours are higher. Whereas what I think Steve was saying is, we appreciate that even if your rates are higher, we appreciate that you've got to recover costs. If they're real costs, you got to recover them. But the question is, there's a lot of detail. You talked about the 100 consultants coming up with 100 different ideas. There's a lot of detail in how you recover those costs and which customers they go to. And I think what Jeff's slides are saying is that we feel like this allocation is just dumping a lot of it on the manufacturing class, which is exacerbating that rate comparison. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, I'll close the public hearing, and I will say to all the manufacturers that just happen to come here and all the ones that are customers in the city of Cartersville, we thank you for bringing the jobs and the investment here. And we said, I want to applaud David Myers and the city staff for being, I think we've spent an awful lot of time, energy, resources, blood, sweat, and tears on both sides trying to get to a position that things are going to be moving forward for the best for everybody in Cartersville. But I do think we do a great job of getting people answers and getting people information. And when issues come up, we have an approachable staff that's ready to sit down and dialogue. So I want to thank everybody involved in that. Once again, we don't take your business lightly at all. So I just want to thank you publicly for that. We'll move on, and certainly everybody who's here is welcome to stay here, despite the fact that it's about 22 degrees in here.
We're paying our power bill.
I feel like I'm at a Waffle House. But certainly if you have other interests or somewhere to be, we certainly understand that as we move about the rest of the city's business, and we do thank you for your time to attend. Next item is also a first reading of an ordinance relative to electric rates. So Mr. Myers, if you'll come up and get us started with that. I don't believe we're going to require a public hearing for that portion, but if you would.
Yes, sir. The second item has 5 rates or riders, and these are language changes only. 4 of those have to do with contract language that was recommended by the legal department to modify, and one of those had language modifying a formula for a customer that asked us to install additional equipment. So those were language only changes, and they were separated from the items that were affected by the cost of service study.
And those were relative to state law. Did you mention that in the work session?
Yes, sir. Basically, state law has provisions regarding the length of customer contracts that we can have, and our language is sort of ambiguous, and I wanted to more fully reflect state law. So I suggested to David next time he did amendments to make changes.
All right. Once again, this is first reading of an ordinance. No action needed by council tonight. It's pretty straightforward. We'll move on. Randy, you've got the next item, a couple of appointments to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Council. We had air change. When I got here, everybody said it was so hot. I never changed the temperature. I just changed it from heat to air conditioning. As you're aware, we have 7 Planning Commission members. 4 of them, their terms are expiring. And with that, the mayor's appointment is only a 2-year term. The other remaining 3 are for 4-year terms. The mayor's appointment is Lamar Penley. The mayor has noted he is reappointing Lamar. Stephen Smith, who was appointed by Jace, is also expiring, and Jace has noted that he will reappoint Mr. Smith. Harrison Dean is the Ward 4 Lindsay's appointment, and Lindsay has noted he is reappointing Harrison. And the last one, Lamar Pinson, the Ward 6 appointment by Lori, and she had mentioned that she would recommend reappointing Lamar. With that, we recommend your approval of these reappointments, and we can move forward and have a new planning commission again.
Thank you. Any discussion? And if not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next one is reappointment to the
Housing
Authority.
Yeah, the Housing Authority of Calvin Cooley.
Okay. Any discussion or motions on that item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item we have on the agenda regarding Freeport, I'm going to remove that from the agenda.
Was he waiting on that? Are you waiting on that, Craig? Was he here?
Was anybody here that wanted to speak on behalf of Freeport? Okay. I'm going to remove that from the agenda for this meeting. Quite frankly, there was maybe the assumption of an agreement on behalf of myself in regards to the school board. There needs to be some further clarification about proceeding with Freeport. I will state I think it's one of the most important things we can do as far as economic development in this city, but we need to do that in concert with the school board. And so we'll be getting with them to get further clarification about when, where, and how on that. So for the time being, we'll remove that from the agenda.
Should have a motion in a second, Mayor.
All right, a motion to remove that from the agenda.
Motion to remove.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
It is removed. Thank you, Mr. Lovell. Mr. Archer will let me get by without having to do that.
He would. He's a nice fellow.
All right, next item, Gordy, you got that regarding the Blue Trail at Leak Mounds.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a budget item. It's recommending for a task order on a Blue Trail, which will be on Highway 113, Leak Mounds Trail. It'll be a kayak and canoe launch. It is part of a Georgia DNR Recreational Trails Program grant, and it's a budget item. Once again, I'll verify everything's in compliance. It's through Southland Engineering, which we've already chosen to represent.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Gordy, on this item?
Just one little question. I know that there's a lot of guys putting in boats with motors. How are you going to stop them from doing that right there?
The way this is designed, it would be awful hard for them to tow a boat with a motor.
Okay, so basically this is a...
You have to tote your kayak or canoe down a series of steps, which are platforms that ease you into the water basin.
That would be tough.
That would be rather tough.
Gotcha. Well, with that, I mean, I make a motion to approve.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Porter, you've got the next two items, please, sir.
More questions on that.
Yes, Mayor, one of our city employees had an auto accident with the individual back in August of last year, and there's been a release and settlement agreement for medical and personal injuries. I recommend approval of that. $10,565 would release the city of further liability on that. Go on to the next one, or you want me?
No, we need to go ahead and approve, or entertain a motion as to whether or not to approve that or not, as the case may be.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Continue on.
For the Main Street Gateway project, we had C.W. Matthews send out bids for contractors to provide us with joint utility trench work for AT&T, Fiber, and Comcast to provide duct work for that. The bids prices came in, and the lowest and best bid is $263,250. I see this as a savings overall because we anticipated Fiber department paying about $120,000 just for our utility line, plus the fact that it's a tight space they're going to be working in. So I recommend approval of this. And in the long term, I do anticipate this a savings to the city. It's coming out of the 2003 SPOS funds.
Any discussion or any motions wish to be made?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Quist?
Somebody wants to call.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, we've been working on the Habitat project for over 2 years now, and I'm here before you tonight to request your authority to purchase the what will be the 5th property out of 6 that we're going to be putting new Habitat homes up on. The property is located at 145 Douglas Street. It's currently in quite dilapidated state, and those are the types of homes that we've been targeting. As is consistent with the rules of spending federal money, we did conduct an appraisal on the property. It came back appraised at $16,500. That certainly fits within our property acquisition budget with the grant. So I'm requesting your authority to purchase this property for $16,500 plus we'd also like to pay closing costs. The current estimated total is $17,123.38. I've been, it's been recommended to me to ask for a little bit more than that, just in case there is any last-minute fees that pop up through the attorney's office if they find something on the title or something like that. So I'd like to ask for a little bit of leeway and ask that you grant me authority to close for up to $20,000, but it's likely it'll be significantly less.
Okay.
And just as a final reminder, this is being paid for through the CDBG Supplemental Disaster Recovery Fund, so all expenses associated with purchasing this property and the ongoing costs of construction and demolition and everything will be reimbursed. So, and we do have a save document from the current owner.
Thank you. So any motion would need to be amended to include up to, or just noted that it would be up to $20,000?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I'll be glad to make that motion.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Tom. Bobby, you got the next one, sir.
Thank you, sir. The resurfacing contract for this fiscal year budget, we just received 5 bids on it, and I'll read them quickly. C.W. Matthews bid $351,675.75. Bartow Paving bid $379,756.29. Blunt Construction bid $381,778.05. Northwest Georgia Paving $384,913.70. Atlanta Paving and Concrete bid $406,540.05. This paving is 3 streets, Terrell Drive, Don Drive, Quality Drive, along with the final resurface on River Shoals subdivision streets and Mission Estates Phase 6, final wear surface on that subdivision as well. Funding is coming from several places. Georgia DOT through LMIG is giving us or granting us $141,983.72. We have a maintenance bond on the Mission Estates Phase 6 subdivision of $73,500. We have Public Works General Fund resurfacing dollars of $87,000. SPLOST is going to fund about $50,000 of that. We recommend the low bidder, C.W. Matthews Contracting, $351,675.75. Bartow Paving was 7.98% higher than that. So we would like to recommend the low bidder, C.W. Matthews.
Okay.
E-Verify and Save documents came with the bid.
Any discussion, questions? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion for the low bid, C.W. Matthews.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ed, you've got the next item, please.
Mayor, Council, this is a request for approval to purchase split bell repair sleeves for water mains. These are to replace materials used from inventory. These repair sleeves will allow us to repair 16-inch and 20-inch water lines. A price was received from Consolidated Pipe and Supply in the amount of $9,226. This is a sole source item available only through this vendor. It's a specialized item that is fabricated per the specs that you turn in. We did receive the E-Verify and Save documentation. Again, the amount is $9,226. This will be paid for from the maintenance item, or the budgeted item for maintenance of water mains. We do have, and as I mentioned, the E-Verify and Save documentation.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the bid for consolidated pipe supply.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And now we'll get our financial report. Mr. Reinhardt.
Honorable Mayor and Council, tonight we'll be reviewing the financial report for December 2011 and comparing it to December 2010. In the general fund, revenues have decreased from last year's level by $141,000. Expenses have increased by $569,000. This is due to the JDA payment and increased capital expenses. And the three areas of revenue that I monitor on a monthly basis are local option sales tax. It has decreased from last year by $211,000. Police fines and forfeitures has increased by $16,000. And building permits and inspections have increased by $15,000. In the water and sewer fund, the revenues have decreased from last year's level by $47,000. This is due to decreased surcharges and fines, while the expenses have also decreased by $323,000. This is decreased to the continued lower debt service payments and also lower capital expenses. In the gas fund, the revenues have increased from last year's level by $402,000, while expenses have decreased by $261,000. This is due to the decreased cost of purchased gas. As you know, we've had a much milder winter, and with milder winter, gas service has been decreased by the customers. In the electric fund, revenues have increased from last year by $2.1 million. However, the expenses have also increased by $1.8 million. This is due to increased operating expenses and increased cost of purchasing electricity. Stormwater fund revenues have increased from last year by $21,000. Expenses have decreased by $173,000, and this is due to decreased operating expenses and also decreased capital expenses. In the solid waste fund, revenues have decreased from last year by $34,000, and expenses decreased by $137,000. And the decrease is due to decreased operating expenses. And finally, in the fiber optics fund, revenues have decreased from last year by $172,000. You remember that we received several large payments that were nice to get last year. Unfortunately, this year we've not gotten any. The expenses have decreased by $30,000, and this is due to decreased operating expenses, the decreased MEAG debt payment, and also decreased capital expenditures. And that is my report for the month of December.
Any questions for Tom on this financial report?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other business that needs to come before council this evening? Sure.
Greg's not here.
Oh. Authority's not going to tell us when the next moonlight hike is.
Bobby's raising his hand.
Come on, Bobby. Bobby wants to share tonight.
I'll fill in for Greg tonight.
Thank you.
Just want to give you a quick report on our recycling program. Tomorrow completes the first 2-week cycle on collections. As of today's route completion, we've collected 22,400 pounds of recyclables. And as of today, we've got 1,119 participants signed up. So.
Very good.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
In the container march paper, is that just for newspaper, or can I put like the 12-pack, you know, the fridge packs that
Once it's not corrugated, you can put it in.
Any non-corrugated paper.
Can go in there.
Magazines, newspaper, office paper, cereal boxes, pasta boxes.
You got an iPad, look it up.
That's great. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
We'll talk after the meeting.
Yes.
I've already been told that by somebody else.
Anything else? All right. Tomorrow morning, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking to the Cartersville Primary School second grade.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will all be sitting there patiently and smiling at me like all of you have tonight. And I look forward to seeing Kristen Kearney's group, along with my friends Ethan Sonnenschein and Gib Williams, and all the other friends over there at the second grade at the primary school. I operate very well on their level mentally. So, that being said, motion to adjourn.
You're living the dream.
Adjourn. We got a room for that.